This is Grace. On first impressions, a normal person like you or I. But Grace is different. She is part of a growing community that has caused a divided opinion in the United Kingdom. Her community, her background and her culture has been debated by people up and down the country for many years. And her community has dominated the media, the everyday people around the water cooler, and more recently by politicians in Westminster. Because Grace is a witch.
Well, I was 14 when I was told that I was a witch. My mum sat me down and told me in no uncertain terms that I was different from other girls, which was a bit of an understatement. I'd always felt different. I always felt that there was something else, and then it made sense. And I was just hoping that as I grew up, I would feel less different the older that I became, and hopefully the less ignorant other people would be. My mother, who was also a witch, always said that I shouldn't really let that define me, that I can still become whatever I wanted to be. And when I'm having a tough time, I still really remember those words. And that was 63 years ago. No, I don't really look a day older than 29, but I mean that's the benefits of being a witch. Magic. You know, days of all these people thinking that you had green skin and crazy hair and, you know, warts the size of Rice Krispies. It's all gone. It's all gone. I mean, if you had powers, the first thing that you'd do is make sure you looked good, you know, real, but good. And I don't know one witch that has a hunchback or those long sort of twiggy fingers or bow legs or anything like that. It's just, that's all you see is in the movies, really. Like I said, if you had magic, one of the first things you'd do is, you know, treat yourself. So we can do magic. I'm not talking about the stuff that you see on TV. Obviously, I can't pull a rabbit out of a hat, and I don't go around sawing people in half. I'm talking about like real magic. You know, like I can fly without the aid of a broomstick. You know, I can travel to wherever I want to, just like that. This morning, I was having croissants in Paris. I was thinking about going to Morocco later. But normally, I'm very careful with my magic. You know, I mean, sometimes I can get a bit careless, which people don't understand in the context. But we are victimised. We are judged on things that people don't understand and don't bother finding out.
Grace's family arrived in the UK over 300 years ago. Like many witches in Great Britain, they've tried to integrate into the British way of life. But to some people, their right to live here is contentious, and they are seen by some as a nuisance to the British Isles.
Well, what do I think? Like, all these fucking witches and trolls coming over here, like, we've got the worst unemployment stats since, like, you know, I don't know, fucking whenever. I don't fucking know, I don't keep up on these things. But at the end of the day, I know I ain't had a job in 8 fucking years, yeah? My brother ain't had a job, you know, it takes a fucking piss. I see this fucking troll working in Tesco the other week, yeah? What the f***? I mean, he's good for getting in tight spaces, obviously. What the f***? I ain't had a fucking job. Why has he got a fucking job? You take the piss, mate, you know?
I mean, people are threatened. People are threatened by us. Do I look threatening to you in this situation? You know, it's ridiculous. I can safely say, hand on heart, that in the over 70 years I've been here, I have never, ever threatened anyone. Well, there was once when I turned this kid into a frog, but he was being a bully, so I think the end justified the means, really. But I've never, ever, ever hurt anyone. That was just, you know, for shock value. I would never, ever use any of my spell to cause any harm. You know, I'm just not that kind of witch, you know.
We asked the British public for their thoughts on the influx of witches.
Leave them alone. They're not doing any harm. I think they're actually doing some good. I mean, they're a little different, but diversity's a good thing, isn't it? I definitely think so.
My friend's dad was cured by witch, so me, all for them. I mean, we could learn a few things from them.
But Grace insists that although she still respects and follows the traditions of her culture, she isn't looking for trouble.
I mean, I've been tempted. I really have been tempted sometimes. Believe me, you know, some kids nowadays, they can be quite little, you know, like little so-and-sos. But that's not why we have this stuff. That's not what it's there for. You know, I want to use what I have for good. And I have that obligation within me to give back to the community and just to get rid of this wicked stereotype, because that's not true. You know, that's not who we are. And for the record, I know plenty of good witches, okay? There are just some people out there that give us a bad name, you know. You just have to read the likes of, I don't know, Sleeping Beauty, yeah, Wizard of Oz, anything by C.S. Lewis. And it's all just propaganda. It's a really bad representation of our sisterhood. And I think that's a real shame. And it's sexist. You know, you never hear a negative wizard story. It's always the wizard that comes in and saves the day. Yeah, I mean, like Merlin and Gandalf. I mean, don't even get me started on the bloody Harry Potter series. That is totally wrong. And the only thing I can think of is that the witch from Buffy. Yeah, that's probably the only positive witch representation out there. And I blame the media for this. I blame the media for this witch hunt.
I think it's disgraceful the way they're being treated. It's like animals.
Yeah, they're just trying to live their lives. It's ridiculous.
You don't know what it's like where they've come from.
Yeah, you hear stories all the time.
That house has fallen on them.
I mean,
From America. I mean,
no wonder they've come here.
for a better life.
It's an opinion that has divided the public.
At the end of the day, mate, it's positive discrimination, yeah? F***ing jobs, human jobs, mate. Human jobs for human f***ing people.
I don't own a cauldron before you ask. I've got a slow cooker. I mainly use that for stews and casseroles, actually. It's really good. I don't own a cat. I'm allergic to them. I don't have any kind of pointy, wide-brimmed hat, even for fancy dress. I don't dress all in black. I don't care how flattering it is. And before you ask, no, I'm not obsessed with getting a pair of ruby red slippers, okay? Much more practical. What would I want with ruby red slippers? I don't cackle. I laugh, just like everyone else. And I have never, ever referred to anyone as my pretty, even in an ironic sense. Yeah, I mean, I cast spells, but so what? All of the ingredients are vegan. Anyway, they're all eco-friendly and natural. Apart from Eye of Newt. You can't find a good substitute for Eye of Newt. But you see, it's a bit like comparing it to homeopathy. Yeah, it's like that. And you don't see people trying to dunk homeopaths to see if they sink or swim, do you?
Our dad, right, he was a plumber, 40 years, yeah? What's he got? F***ing nothing, mate. These trolls and witches come over, they got it all, mate, you know? What's the answer? F***ing burn them, every last one of them. For f***'s sake.
Most of the witches I know use their powers for good. And I don't want to blow my own trumpet here, but you're talking to one of them. I became a nurse. I could have become a doctor, but I didn't really fancy all of that unpaid training. Don't really want to be that exploited. Besides, the uniforms are better.
Grace has worked at a local hospital for many years now, where she has proved to be a great asset.
Yeah, so I nurse. I look after the sick. I go around the wards and look after people. And sometimes, if I do meet someone who the doctors can't treat, and their families are really, really nice, and it seems a bit unfair, I might cast a little spell, and I know it's unethical, but that's why I became a nurse, so that I could help, and if I can help a little bit more, then why not, really? I mean, my coven have said that it's sort of an abuse of powers and stuff, but so's going to Morocco to check out the sunsets.
Grace is one of the many witches employed by the NHS, something that is praised by her co-workers.
No, she's a really good worker. She's very popular with the other doctors and the other nurses, very popular with the patients. They really appreciate her. And the important thing is she cares.
Much as others like her, she's doing her bit.
See, people like to label people. If you're an accountant, you must be boring. If you're a footballer, you must be thick. If you're a witch, you must be evil. But that's not how people are. I'm sure there are really interesting accountants and really clever footballers. Just because I've never met them doesn't mean that they don't exist. I don't assume that they're all the same. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that. I once turned a boy into a frog. But we can't afford to be prejudiced with anyone, no matter what people say. Once you put someone into a box, they stop becoming a someone and they become a something. And that's wrong.
Neil Burridge, the Secretary for Enchanted Beings, has caused controversy recently with his views on witches. His Humans First campaign has drawn strong support from certain groups, whilst simultaneously enraging those who believe in embracing witches and their kind.
My opinion, and it's an opinion I know I share with many of my fellow MPs, an opinion that's shared by the majority of the great British public, is that we should be putting the British people first. Our concern is for the welfare of the normal, everyday people of the UK. What we shouldn't be doing is pandering to this modern political correctness that's just taken over this country and led to suffering.
Ultimately, I think it boils down to the fact that I'm seen as different. I've lived among you long enough now to feel as though I'm not just a witch, I'm also human. I've contributed to society, so maybe I should be treated with a little bit more humanity. Not judged, not victimised, and certainly not subjected to the torrent of abuse that I can receive on a daily basis. I suppose it is about sacrificing things, really. I mean, every now and then you've got to make sacrifices, haven't you?
Last month, when the British Independence Party announced a vote on whether witches should be banished or not, thousands hit the streets of London to protest. While social network sites exploded with groups voicing arguments for both sides.
I'm not saying that witches shouldn't be working here. That is not the issue. What is the issue? That it shouldn't be to the detriment of the great British public. It shouldn't be that they suffer for the sake of whoever or whatever travels here from the back of an enchanted wardrobe.
People are always reminded of the bad stuff. Like the poisoned apples and the flying monkeys, and that really is a small percentage. But people voted. And since then, my friends and I have been subjected to a barrage of hate aimed against us. People are saying to us that we're no longer needed, no longer wanted, and no longer welcome. How soon they forget.
With the votes counted, a surprise vote in favour of banishment was pushed through Parliament, leaving many witches, warlocks and wizards facing an uncertain future, an obvious concern to witches such as Grace.
There is one thing that I really must say.
Haven't you heard there's a witch in our town? We won't be safe with her hanging around. She looks like one of us, but she wants us dead. She hides in the shadows and under your bed. Burn her, burn her, burn her, burn her. Haven't you heard there's a witch in our town? She'll flood our houses and laugh as we drown. And all the tsunamis and earthquakes you've seen are conjured by witches throughout Halloween. Burn her away, burn her away. Hunt her down, overturn her today. And all the tsunamis and earthquakes you've seen are conjured by witches throughout Halloween. Burn her, burn her, burn her, burn her. Haven't you heard there's a witch in our town? She'll boil the queen while wearing the crown. There's a covenant for the government, so sinister. The wickedest one wants to be Prime Minister. Burn her away, burn her away. Hunt her down, overturn her today. There's a covenant for the government, so watch out for them. The wickedest of all wants to be the PM. Burn her, burn her, burn her.
I suppose it's about sacrificing things, really. Every now and then, you've got to make a sacrifice, haven't you? I see you pointing fingers. I hear you calling names. I feel you staring at me, like I'm the one to blame. I might not be like you. I might be different. But our will is strong, and we'll carry on. We are strong and proud and defiant. You can round us up and call us animals. You can kill us, burn us and drown us. But you will never silence our cause. Justice is acceptance, and tolerance is our objective. We are all working together. Our differences are subjective. Stop looking for solutions when you don't understand the problem. That's like cutting down trees because you don't like autumn. We didn't come here for hatred, and we didn't come here to fight. Some people hide their evil in the shadows. I stood in broad daylight. Our hearts are pure. Our spirit is true. This is what we're made of. We're not the ones starting fires. Who should you really be afraid of?